Okay, so you've got yourself a countdown scene. In fact, we've already set up a title scene, and we've also set up a couple of other bits and pieces for animations going across that. But perhaps you want to run a countdown going towards that scene, so that will be the final scene that jumps in just before you go live, but you want a countdown as well. So if you are using my Ecamm Basecamp profile and you are following these scenes or these videos in order, this is what your countdown scene is going to look like, and it's not quite right, so I think you need to play about a little bit with this countdown scene. But one of the things I was going to do was add in a snow shower in the background first of all. So I'm going to grab a snow shower here, and I'm going to drop it into show in background. I'm going to drop it in just below the blend mode there. So it has already adopted those colours, but of course I'm not going to want that to cover the whole screen. So again, I'm just going to choose a blend mode of overlay, and we've got some subtle snow going on in the background, which I quite like. But the colours of these timers or the way it's looking and feeling is not quite right for me, because the lettering and things are not showing up very well. So if I come into my timer itself, I can adjust the timing or the settings here. So if I just make that blend mode normal, then that's going to appear as white rather than semi see-through. I might want to make it a little bit see-through, we'll see. But let's just add in a bit of a shadow to make the countdown stand out a bit. And if I come up here as well and do exactly the same for the live in element, so I make that normal blend mode and add in a shadow, then that's going to stand out slightly. So immediately that looks a lot better, and we've got a little bit of snow floating over the back. And again, I could change the blend mode on the snow, because I've dropped that into show in background. It's going to show in every single scene. So if I ran my initial scene, which was my intro type scene up here, you will see a little bit of that dropping in the background, so you can see the snow flowing through. So it's sort of combining the two, but it's hardly noticeable. And here you can see a bit of snow gently drifting around the edge of the screen, so I might want to change that, but up to me to determine whether or not I want the snow to be quite gentle or quite bright. So again, I could come down and change the blend modes down here. So I've got it set at overlay at the moment. If I set it at hard light, then it's going to go quite dark, and pin light, and then we'll try some others as well. Let's have a look at the screen. Now for me, I think I'm just going to leave it as overlay, because it has less of an effect and it's quite subtle, and you don't want to go so far that you're distracting everybody. But what we're going to have is a little bit of snow showing through dependent on which scene we're actually in, and that is a loop. So if you didn't want the background on, you could come down and turn off my Christmas background, and that's not going to work very well at all. So yeah, just perhaps leave a background in there at all, because it's going to blend the two together. So if I wanted that to work, then I'd have to change the blend mode on the snow shower as well. So let's turn off that background, and if I come up here and choose this blend mode to just be normal, we're going to get the colours showing through again. So if you want a plain version of things, then you could do that and just have snow in the background if that's what you want to do. But I'm going to put it back to the overlay. It's going to disappear for a moment until I bring in a background, and then we're back again with my countdown timer coming in as it was previously. Now in this particular case, I also noticed that I've got some text down the side here which just says my live show. That's also got a blend mode of overlay, so I maybe want to bring that back to normal as well. And it's got a low opacity, so I'm going to bring up the opacity on that as well. Maybe let's just bring it up to maximum for the moment. So I would do the same on the other side of the screen as well. So blend mode normal, wherever normal is, and bring the opacity back up so you can actually see that it says My Live Show at either side of the screen, and I think that looks fine. But maybe I'll go and have a look for a graphic or two I could drop on this screen as well. Alternatively, what I might do actually, why don't I go and drop in a banner or two, because we had some drop-in banners that say Merry Christmas and things like that, and season's greetings. So if I look at my Merry Christmas banner, I could bring that in and drop that on the top of this scene, and it's going to be pretty big when I drop it in on the top, and it's just going to appear once to start with. But because I've dropped that in as an overlay, I can actually move that about, so everything else should be locked on this scene. Yes, it is. So if I move that about, I can shrink it down, because maybe I just want Merry Christmas appearing in the corner of the screen here, just like that. So I could have that dropping in on my countdown, and I could put it on a loop, I suppose. And you can do this with any of these little drop downs that have got the string attached to them. I think there's about 4 or 5 of those, and they say different things, so you could have that dropping in during your countdown if that's something that you wanted. And I guess you could change the blend mode on that as well. So what happens if I put blend mode overlay? I suspect it's going to be quite, almost invisible. But we'll try a couple of different blend modes. So that one's luminosity, and maybe that matches in a little bit better with the countdown timer that we've got going on. So let's just stop him for a moment. I've got to pause him there. Okay, so what else might you want to do on your countdown scene? So I've got my little Merry Christmas dropping in. I've chosen to add in a couple of friends of our show. Myself and Neil do a show called Creator Cafe, and we had Saeed join us on the show, and we also had John join us on the show. So you might want to do something like add cutouts of your guests in on your countdown timer. So in this case with John, I've got a cutout. Blend mode is normal, but I've added shadow in there as well, so it just jumps out a little bit more if you put a bit of a shadow behind him. And the same for Saeed, there's a bit of a cutout around him already. But I think that then looks quite good for the show. Let's just get our little Merry Christmas jumping back and forth as well. And we've got our snow going on in the background, and that snow is going to show through on every single scene. So if I come to my next scene, I don't think I'm going to see it much because it's only kind of in the background, but I quite like that as a sort of a Christmas intro, just having your guests on there. You might fly in some text for them as well, and that would be quite interesting too. So let's have a look at that one. So this is what my scene looks like with my guest in. Now I'm probably going to change the texts here so that they look a bit nicer as well. So I'll change the fonts as well on those and have a play about with that. And I probably will go down here and change this overlay as well. So what happens if I put that just as a overlay mode? It's kind of disappearing totally there, so I think I need to then change the background color. I think if I change it to white, that probably won't work. Well, it's not too bad. So yeah, I could have something like that going on, but I'm going to have to then change the color in here as well, because the text is now almost disappearing. So let's just do that. Edit the text and the text color. So why don't we use the picker here to be picky with the picker, and then we'll make the text color blue so that it matches in with what we've got there. And I think I must have that as an opacity, because I've just put, the text itself, because I've just chosen the blend mode for that overlay. The text is almost disappearing as well, so I don't think changing the color on that is going to help greatly. So I would need to then change the blend mode, and if I change the blend mode to normal, I think it's going to be a bit bright. So let's just change the blend mode to normal and edit the text as well. So the background color, I'm not liking that at all, so we're going to change the background color because the white is way too much. So we'll bring the background colour right down. I think that sort of 75 is probably appealing to me as a colour, but we can see there's a bit of a shadow going on around the text itself. Don't really like that shadow effect going on around the text, but it seems to drop that in frequently as default, so I'm just going to change that slightly, and I think that looks much nicer now. And if we did come in and change the fonts, I don't know that I'm going to change the viewer name font to the Ultra Christmas Nordic version, because that was a little bit too much, but I might want to come in and play about with it and choose some other type of font. So I know I've got a handwriting font in here which is called Handwriting Dakota. It's another one that I downloaded for free, and I quite liked it just because it was fairly subtle. So viewer name there, and I think I will probably do the same on these here. We'll match all the text together, why not? And we'll make these Handwriting Dakota as well. And it kind of makes all the difference, but I'm not liking the fonts in capitals anymore. So let's change that. Yeah, I think that looks a bit nicer. And we'll edit the text for guest 1 as well, and make that Handwriting Dakota. And I think I need to change that not to be all uppercase. We need to choose a better name than guest 1 there. But you can now see that we've got a countdown timer and various other scenes set up. So let's just move this around a little bit. So I've got host, show and title. We'll come back and play about with that later, but being as I've just set up that guest 1 and comment scene, let's just bring that in. So really we would have our countdown sitting here. We'd run the countdown. So I'd have my guests coming in. I should really change the name to Saeed or John Espirian. And then after the countdown has finished, it's going to roll on to my title. And then straight into my guest scene. So there we've got a little run of show coming together, and we'll come back and play with that a little bit further.